they're testing your blood, and they go, oh, she's got marijuana in her. No judge, no jury, no second test, no process. They come and take the blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby. Well, this is 3 years later, and so they contacted my show, and they said, we're pregnant, we're going back in the hospital. We just want to make sure they don't try to take them. They call. I leave the radio that day. I drive down there. I go in with a camera. The cops say, turn your camera off. I say no. We open the door up, and the cop, and Mike Hansen was a witness to this. The camera doesn't pick it up very well. Mike Hansen was there. He got there even before me. And the cop actually had his hand on her neck, making her sign it. You can't make this stuff up. This country's so gone, folks. And because they have special CPS cops just assigned to them who are particularly devilish. And they took the baby off her breast, the newborn baby, disappeared. And then we go to the court. They didn't even fill out the right name. They said the baby was 3 years old and that this lady had done all this abuse. The forms aren't just lies. They're so lazy and so criminal, they don't even care. They just use old forms and on. Have you ever seen that, Senator?
Well, I haven't exactly seen that. I do know that they take children right out of the hospitals, and sometimes they're 1 or 2 days old. But the caseworkers and social workers oftentimes, very often, are guilty of fraud, and they do withhold the evidence, and they fabricate the evidence. And their whole goal is to terminate the parental right of the parents. And parents are just left at the mercy, and all of this in the best interest of the child. Those words, in the best interest of the child, have been redefined. It's not in the best interest of the child. The bottom line is taking the children for money.
And the law was written, for those that don't know, I'd like you to speak to this because I know you're an expert on it, so you can speak to it. It was written to where, we're supposed to keep the family together and give it to grandparents or the other spouse. Grandparents don't like how the parents are operating. They advertise on TV to tattle. The grandparents go and tattle, and then they don't get the children 9 times out of 10. Yes.
There are lots of grandparents that cannot get their grandchildren, even when it would be best if say the parents are on drugs. Someone does need to have access to those children, but oftentimes the grandparents are turned down. Now, there is a policy that you're supposed to secure a relative immediately for those parents, but oftentimes that relative is never sought out. The grandparents are never given the children, and a stranger then comes in and takes over the lives of those children.
And
there is absolutely no financial resource or no real drive to unite the family back together, or to keep them together, or to provide any effective care for the family. That is completely gone. Now it's destroying the family.
Well, right out of high school, I learned about this because for the summer I worked for a large carpet cleaning place. And we would go to these houses, because, we might go to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 houses a day sometimes, and I'd say, what is this? And it'd be usually a middle-class house, 5-bedroom. Parts of it be nice. There'd be rooms locked. There'd be kids walking around, in shorts with their shirts off, ages 3 to 10. There'd be marijuana smoke. There'd be some fat. It always looked the same. Some pervert-looking adult. And then because you'd be in a 2-man team, and I was with the older guy who knew about it. He goes, this is some foster parent house. And I'm not attacking all foster parents, folks, but I saw what it is. It's lazy potheads or alcoholics that get 4 or 5 kids, and that's their business, is they warehouse them, and they're always getting caught killing them or locking them up or giving them 1 hot dog a day, bread and water, because they want all that money for their drug habit. And that's why I've seen statistics of foster parents being 5 times more likely to abuse children than any other group.
You're exactly right. The children are much more likely to be abused in foster care than at home with their own parents. The beginning of this journey for me began with a grandmother who was trying to get her 2 granddaughters in one of the counties in my district. The Child Protective Services had removed the 2 little girls from their mother, who was very young, and they based it on the fact that there was an unopened can of beer in the front of her car. They took these 2 little girls over to an adjoining county, put them in foster home over there where they had 18 children, all kinds of little rooms downstairs in the lower level of this home. And one of the caseworkers in that county was a pedophile.
Of course.
Who lived in that home and regularly sexually molested the children who were in the foster care.
Ugh.
When this came up in court, I went to court with this grandmother and sat in the back of the courtroom. And we had a good attorney that day who pulled the walls down, who cross-examined one of the older children in this foster home, and she admitted that there was an inappropriate relationship between the foster mother and the caseworker. And then it got a little worse, and then the juvenile court judge got all nervous and said, "Counsel, meet me in my chambers," and they went out and stayed 5 minutes and came back, and our attorney just looked at us and out loud said, "It's nothing but legal kidnapping. That's all it is, legal kidnapping." But let me tell you what happened.
Did they get the child back?
We pressed, it's called DFACS in Georgia, and we pressed and pressed and pressed. The judge said those children will be removed within a week. Well, a week was gone, 10 days was gone, the children were still there. We kept leaning on them to get those children out of there. And out of the blue, someone called this grandmother in Florida to tell her that they were bringing the children from Georgia to the state line. Would she drive up to pick them up? She, of course, said she would be there. She got the children. They didn't have any clothes. One was not wearing shoes. Mm-hmm. She took them home, and within 3 days, that juvenile court judge drew up a new order, and she gave the two little girls to their father, who lived on the West Coast, who had never been involved in their lives, and who was involved in adult entertainment. I pulled his business up on the internet. Pornographic. Awful.
That's why they gave it to him. And in fact, you come to the next point, Senator.
Within 3 days, that father was knocking on the door of that grandmother and took those two little girls screaming and crying to the West Coast.
Well, it's better than that in that death pit down there in that house with all those other little kids. Now,
right.
Now, for those that don't know, I found out about this because I walked into these pits, and I probably only saw that summer 7 or 8 of them, but I mean they were all the same.
That's horrible.
And literally they're hell pits. And I'm Senator. You notice everything I've told you. You've seen the same thing because we've had the same similar experience, fighting this. And I just do it a little bit of the time. Frankly, I psychologically shy away from it because it's so. Well, it just makes me feel.
It does take its toll on you.
It makes me feel very aggressive. It makes me want to. But the point is that when it comes right down to it, how many Homeland Security deputy directors of states have been caught with little kids? How many senators and congressmen, with the pages, and how many DHS officials, that want to stop child abuse, it turns out, are pedophiles? When you get down to it, you got a couple groups. You got parents you've got children who were abused, who think that all parents are abusive and they're going to